I just wanted to say that Gloria and Shirley and I probably remember the same things. The Vietnam War, the killing of Martin Luther King and JFK and Robert Kennedy was it was a terrible time in the United States. I don't know if anything could ever compare to that. And so the problem has existed since in my teens and early 20s what the answer was. And I mean, we go through this all the time, and you come up with the same thing: prayer. Prayer. We'll be more like brothers and sisters to each other, but it never seems to work. It sort of just goes deeper, and we cover it up. And so I'm interested in knowing what a plan is, and be active in it.
Yeah.
I was thinking about this is just probably doesn't have anything to do with it, but the successful launching of the rocket yesterday, and how Elon Musk went to President Obama and said he wanted to help NASA explore space, that this was
Mm-hmm.
such an opportunity. So they formed a partnership. And yesterday was the result of that, optimism and thinking they could work together. So if you have a plan and you're willing to work it, it's not just here. I've
Right.
got a very good friend. She's like a daughter that home is China. She
Mm-hmm.
was living in England and went back to Hong Kong about 3 days ago. Well, if you know anything about Hong Kong, they've been taken back by China, will be under the thumb of the Chinese. And this is causing riots all over China.
Wow.
So we're not the only,
Oh yeah.
in fact, it's just part of the world.
Yeah.
So I guess we can begin it here and maybe they'll follow suit, you think?
Yeah.
So anyway, that's my input. I've seen it, and it's been going on. It's never stopped.
Yeah.
It's been less, but still there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh, I think you hear me okay.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Okay. I think that the problem or part of the solution is you never know who you really put in office until they make those, until they get in and they start making decisions that they already had in mind in the beginning.
Hmm.
And the people who are responsible for holding people accountable, whether it's your friend or somebody you work with, whatever the situation may be, that you turn the other eye or blind eye because you don't measure up to making a decision for holding people accountable for their actions. So if you hold people accountable for their actions and you start setting examples as to, the law, for everything you do, there is a consequence.
Right.
In a consequence, there is a law as to why that consequence was carried out. But it starts with the people in power, whoever it may be. And when you turn a blind eye, you can't solve a solution because you're pretending it does not exist. And the people who were just fed up with it, they never had an open mind to want to do anything. They just want to lash out. But when you lash out, that's not the solution. As you said earlier, it creates more mental, physical, and financial decay.
Yeah.
So that's people were just, I think they were just tired of praying and perhaps, and you shouldn't, and tired of things going this way, and it always amount to, as you stated earlier, the same thing. So
Yeah.
they just they do they start to live the rage inside of them.
Mhm.
The solution is you got to make people accountable.
Okay. So I want to address something that you said. Let's talk about solutions. Problem number one starts with the rage.
Mm-hmm.
We have solutions for that.
That's right.
We have to deal with the rage. Injustice is here. Yes, we get angry. And this is one of the things that I've said, as I was thinking yesterday. The Bible says that we are to be angry and sin not. I said this to somebody earlier this week. It is okay to be angry. but let your anger lead to right actions. And that's what this conversation is about. How do we, and this is why remembering that we have a spirit of sound mind or self-control within us, because what we're seeing in the rioting, in the violence, is a lack of self-control. They're allowing their anger to take over, and they're giving themselves permission to express this anger, right? So within us, the first thing we need to do is to only move when we've got that under control. And that's what, to me, the prayer and the meditation is about. And I'll tell you, it was a lesson I had to learn. It took me kind of years to learn because I have a sharp tongue, right? And when I was younger, I would just go off because I would have righteous indignation, the word that they're throwing around, righteous indignation.
Yeah.
And so I would speak from that anger. And that anger created more hostility. It didn't reach people in the way that it needed to be. And I swear I went through a period where it was almost like God said, you will not speak. Until you learn to speak in power, to speak in love, to speak for change and not more of the same, then you will keep your mouth shut. So we have to keep our mouths shut until we have something worthwhile to say. That's the first step to our action. I was listening to a young lady on the news the other day in Minneapolis. She was one of the leaders of the social activist group, and I could hear her anger in every word that came out of her mouth. And even in that, she justified it. She said, well, I mean, she almost said that the looting and the tearing down of buildings, she said that it wasn't just terrorist groups. Okay, so she defeated what the newscasters were trying to, the narrative that they were trying to put out here to take it away from the protesters. Nah, she said, we mad, and this is why we burning your buildings down. And I'm like, and there you go.
So yeah, how do you get hate and anger out of somebody's heart? You can't legislate it, and but I think one thing that I saw, this was even before this outbreak, this was maybe like several weeks ago, and I even mentioned it to my daughter. One of the ladies that started the Black Lives Matter movement, she said that her dad is white and her mother is Black. And she said that her dad just did not get it about the Black experience. And she said that he had to rescue her and her mother on many occasions because they lived in a real exclusive neighborhood. And he was always having to come and explain that they lived in the neighborhood and that he had to always go and get them when they would stop because they were driving a Jaguar or whatever. And, even though they had proof, but she said even after he did all of that he still did not get it, and he did not understand why she was out there fighting for Black Lives Matter. And when I heard that, I'm saying, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I don't know that the answer is to attempt to change people's minds at this stage in the game. I think our answer is to attempt to impact legislation right now. Because if we have, the police have been protected by our laws. Y'all do realize that, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
And the union.
yes.
And the unions. Yeah. So our job is not to convince folks to think differently than they do. Because how you think really don't impact me. What you say really don't impact me.
Right.
But when the police are putting their knees on my neck, now we got a problem. So So from my perspective, our job is to impact legislation.
Mhm.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
not legislation, we have to impact how police departments are working together. I I listen to a lot of podcasts about true crime. That's just my thing. And you see that as time has progressed, a lot of police departments now talk to each other, and they didn't used to. So this person will be in the next county doing something, and he had done something in a previous county, and if the two had been connected, some of these situations could have been avoided. So it made me think about the fact that we have all these police departments across the country that are functioning completely different. I
Yeah.
don't know how true this is, but I heard that in the city where the guy had his knee on his neck, that was actually written in their training procedures that was acceptable. And then you hear all these police chiefs and police officers saying that that is not something that is allowed in their their place. So what seems to be needed is that there needs to be some countrywide standard of how do safely arrest someone, or how do you safely interact with people. Even something as simple as here in my town, they just started this thing where if you have a person in your home who has mental illness or special needs, I have an autistic son, which is why I went and started reading into this. They want you to fill this form out and bring it to the police station to let them know that you have a person in your home that may not comply or may not understand if they have to interact with the police.
Mhm.
Now, I don't know if that's something that's available everywhere else, but one of my biggest fears is they told my son to get down. My son is only 13, but he's 6 feet tall and 190 pounds. He is not a small guy. And he could very well be perceived as a danger, because of his skin color, unfortunately. And he's just a big fella. And he won't understand if you tell him, hands behind your back, get down on the ground. So Auburn Hills has this policy in place so that at least if they were to come to my house for something, they know he is here, they know he is nonverbal, and they know how to approach him. That needs to be across the board because, you know, there's special needs people everywhere. Or even in the instance with this guy with the knee on the neck, I asked the question, what if he didn't understand what was being asked of him? Or he was in just such distress that because people like to use the phrase like, oh well, if they just cooperate. Well, we're assuming people even know how to cooperate.
He was cooperating. He was
And he
cooperating.
was. He absolutely was in that case. But, as a parent of a child who I know would not understand, I asked the question, what if he didn't know how to cooperate? Does that
Mhm.
mean that death is upon him because he doesn't understand? So how do we get our people who are in authority, people who are in authority to, share information about these best practices across the country so that we don't have police departments putting knees on neck when 80-90% of the police force agree that this is not something that should be done.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is exactly what's happening with the virus too, because every state, every town, every county has different restrictions. So what that relates, that's a very good
Exactly.
point you're making. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think we have some states, some cities where they have made legislation very different. I think of Ferguson because of the problems that were
Mhm.
there. Their police department did a lot of work to go back and look at, because it's all about the policies and they were
Yes.
created for what we have now. And so if we had a way we could, I mean, there are always models that we could say, this is what we expect our police officers to do when they are interacting with someone. And also, you think of the one who has been arrested. He had numerous incidents where he had, my daughter, my son, they live in Minneapolis and they're 15 minutes away. And Ashley said to me, and they're a mixed couple. So she said, this has been going on for so long. She said the people are tired. They are tired because they know this is a culture. They have
Mhm.
allowed to go on that nobody has examined that to see what needs to change.
Yeah.
And I think the way is what you said. I think the way that we start to figure out what to do, because I think about we don't what causes a person to do that to another person is really because their heart is not in there. But we cannot change that. We
Right.
can't, but we can change policy. We
Mhm.
can demand that the way the laws are written and how police interact with suspects
Yeah.
changes.
And
Mhm.
you know,
And have to be held accountable for their behavior. Their this whole like boys in blue thing, and they defend each other. It's
mhm.
no different to me than, like in domestic violence situations, when you've committed a crime, you don't get to go back and say, oh no, I don't wish to place charges on them.
Right.
If they do something, flat out, they need to be held accountable and held accountable swiftly, so that we don't get into these protest situations, because at least people feel like there are consequences for this behavior that is happening.
And that's a very good point that
It
you made,
is.
Kim, and also a very good point from you, Bertha. And I think that I know that I spoke about, holding people accountable. Now, I'm sure that every police department knows that when a person have their hands up, you don't shoot them.
No.
And if a person is running away, that's something that's nationwide. A person is running away, you don't shoot them in the back and say you were afraid for your life, and you go home and you get a paid vacation until it's time to. And people are tired.
Yeah.
Especially, my heart goes out for my nephews,
Yeah.
every Black mother that has a son.
Yeah.
For that matter, every minority mother that has a son. I had a friend who has 4 sons, and she called me. She was afraid. She was crying. They going back to school, and she said, I just don't know what to do. So and normally I think this person is calm, but she lost it. It is inexcusable that the boys in blue who are hired to protect you, they they protect whomever they want. So I know we're trying to come up with a solution, but you have to understand the problem first, that they have been getting away with this for so long that they feel comfortable with it.
Mhm.
And that is why I feel that removing the protective barrier from police officers who murder uh, unarmed, unprovoking individuals during arrest, they are protected right now. We got to remove that protective covering so that a trial can be done, so that justice can at least have the opportunity to be had.
Well,
My words for the past couple of years has been that we did not legislate police officers to be the justice system. We have separate arms of government for a reason. They are law enforcement. They are to arrest. The judicial system is to try and judge. And right now, our police are being the enforcement and the judge and jury. And we are allowing them to get away with that. We need them to bring people to justice so that they can have a fair trial and it can be determined according to the Constitution whether they are guilty or not. And that is not happening.
yeah,
And
and it it didn't happen with Philander Castile.
it's not.
Judge Linda Hatchett was on radio not too long ago. She was the lawyer for his family, and they went to trial, and the jury let officer go. They
Yeah.
found him not guilty. So
Exactly.
what do we do? But now I do know personally one of the major problems about police officers, because I worked in HR for the city of Atlanta for 10 years. And the same problem they had then, they have now. And that is they have a shortage. They do not have enough people. They always have vacancies. So they would take just about anybody. I have actually seen
Yeah.
Yes, yes,
in
yes.
that hiring process, when people failed the drug test, they would tell them to come back, in 30 days.
Mm-hmm.
And they are so desperate for bodies until, the KKK and the neo-terrorists, they can get in on the
Yeah.
police force. And I'm sure that's a lot of what's going on.
And I think they've been hiding out there for years too.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Shirley was going to say something. What were you going to say, Shirley?
Well, I think the bigger issue, well, part of the bigger issue is that we need to educate people on the issues to vote
Yes.
and to hold their, to even know who their elected officials are. They don't even know. A lot of the young people don't even know.
Yeah.
No.
Not just the president. We see a president who gets away with murder time and time again. So we're not able to hold him accountable unless we vote. Chief of police are usually elected officials.
Yes, they are.
DAs are elected officials. People have got to be educated on the issues and vote. And also hold those police departments to a higher esteem where we're paying a decent salary to be able to recruit qualified and high standard people. When we're scraping the scum of the barrel
Yeah.
because we don't have enough people and we're just dragging in anything.
Yeah.
And so that's what we're getting. And the frustration is beyond belief now, like it was before in the
Yeah.
60s. Unfortunately, sometimes you got to burn it down to get people to see how serious you are about rebuilding something.
Yeah. You were going to say something, Mom?
Yeah, I remember when we lived in Arizona, relating to what Shirley was saying, I remember I worked in a Hispanic neighborhood. Remember when I worked with the agency? And whenever something was coming up, those people in that agency would pull all of those Hispanic people together and they would sit down and they would strategize who they were going to vote for, what was
Yes.
going to happen in their community, what police officers were not going to come in this community, and they would go up to where it counted.
Yeah.
One of our biggest problems is that we discuss the problem over and over with ourselves, and we never take the voice where it's going to come. And so that's why we keep ending up with the same scenarios, because we're not doing what it's going to take to make the voice come out of your house, come out of your church, come out of your little neighborhood and go further. And that's something that we really do need to look at.
Yeah.
Because a bad police officer in your neighborhood, you should have some recourse. Just because your son is Black or your daughter is out. I remember a time when a lady went uptown, a Black lady went uptown in a pair of shorts. Do you know they arrested her? Her shorts were too short. So we need to not change the dialogue. We need to extend the dialogue, but we need to come together as a group of people and discuss what's going to happen if we know a bad cop, turn him in, and if our little town or our little city don't do anything about it, we need to know how to move on to the next thing.
Yeah.
Now that's a great comment, and I have a solution for that. Last night, I did some research on different organizations and what they bring to the table. And this is the other piece. Education, like Shirley said, education is so tremendously important in this process. So knowing what organizations work with how you believe and how you believe this should move forward. I did some research on an organization called The Color of Change. And this organization has been fighting to bring equality and solutions for racial justice around the world. Okay. And their website is colorofchange.org. And as I went through, I was amazed. I was amazed at what all the Color of Change was doing and how they were working to impact change. Not only that, the Color of Change said, if you join their website, no fee, they would send you information on how to impact change in your community.
Mhm.
So when we get to these points where we're wondering what to do, there are people who have spent their lives trying to figure out what to do.
Yeah.
And so let's tap into those resources. The Color of Change is one. Black Lives Matter is another. The NAACP, we have neglected and abandoned the NAACP.
What about Rainbow Coalition, Jesse Jackson's?
Same thing. Same thing.
Seems
You
like
the
they
young,
would be,
the younger people don't want to have anything to do with the people that were involved in the movement from the 60s. They say, well, y'all failed us, so we're going to do this. A lot of them don't even want to listen to how to organize, because I think that was a lot of the problem with Black Lives Matters when they first got started. You know, it was such a big movement until they didn't quite know how to organize it. So some of the older people like Al Sharpton, they said, oh, no, we don't want to hear nothing you got to say because this is a new day, you know. So I think it would have been good if they all, the young and the old, could have gotten together, you know. That would have made a little more sense, you know.
Well, and this is why I felt so drawn to the Color of Change. The Color of Change is a more updated organization. However, we can't worry about what the young people are doing. We've got to act in a way that we believe is right. Young people are going to do what they're going to do, but they'll figure it out eventually. That we all in this together, and we all need to work together. You know, they'll figure it out. So I appreciate that they don't like the NAACP, but historically, the NAACP has made change. They have. And what has made them weak is our lack of supporting them. That's what has made them weak. We've completely abandoned them. So, and when I say support, everything that we do does not have to be financial. I amazingly enough, in another life, I almost became a paralegal. And what I learned in the time that I was in paralegal studies was that it takes a lot to bring a case to trial. It takes a lot of research and many, many bodies to go through case studies and look up precedents and examine evidence and share information. We could literally volunteer to be resources for those organizations as they are getting ready to go to court.
Okay.
We can do that. No matter how much money you got. Yeah, yeah. And one of the reasons I bring this dialogue to our community as a spiritual community is that as you saw the Amish were out protesting. Did y'all pay attention to that? The Amish are peace-loving people. They stay out of everything.
Yeah.
They were out in the streets with signs because they believe in social justice. Spiritual people are about, if we don't understand oneness, if we don't understand, we're supposed to, let me take that back. We are supposed to understand oneness, that what hurts one person hurts me. Right. And so I cannot sit back and say it's not my problem as a spiritual person. I cannot sit back and say, let's hope for the best as a spiritual person, because I know that I am an arm of God. And so the reason we are having this dialogue is to give ourselves resources to act and move and be that spirit that is supposed to live inside of us. Yeah.
And today is Pentecost Sunday.
Yes,
So-
it is.
So
You
we
are
got this
absolutely
holy
right.
holiday to work to our advantage, so our prayers and meditations are supercharged, and that the Holy Spirit will just come down on us and get rid of all this chaos. And you know, like I said, we are one. Yeah, we all in this together. You know,
Yeah.
that's it in a nutshell.
Okay. Now, the other thing we need to, back to this concept of oneness. One of the things we do is that we work in a vacuum when it comes to social justice. And I keep telling everybody keep hollering racism, racism, racism. I'm like, what I'm starting to see is more classism than racism. Do you not realize that poverty is the greatest equalizer when it comes to police brutality?
Yeah.
Mexicans, when I was in New Mexico, there was a time where I felt like it was open season on Hispanic people because they were shooting them down left and right.
Mhm.
They were poor people. Yes, poor people. I did a class up in Stockbridge where I pulled together a group of a mixed group to have discussions about multicultural faith, right? And during that, we're creating diversity sensitivity because this was a group who had never been diverse before. They were moving into diversity. And so I worked with that group to try and combat some of the issues. And you want to know what we found in those conversations? While we thought that only Black people had issues with police brutality, I found that poor white people had equally bad scenarios with police brutality. This one man told me that as a 13-year-old boy, growing up in a poor neighborhood, he had another white police officer pull a gun to his face because he was in the wrong neighborhood. He wasn't Black. When we make this be a human problem, a human rights issue, and not just a Black or white or Hispanic or Native Americans. Native Americans are disrespected constantly. We create a force that can be reckoned with. And so I want to encourage you guys as we think about this to not think in a vacuum of our community, but to expand our thinking to reach across the line to other cultures and understand the experience of their community also. And if we can partner with those communities that are having the same experience, then our efforts are supported, they're greater, our impact is greater.
You know, because poverty always gets the law end of the deal, no matter what the issue is. Because coronavirus, poverty has been it with everything else. So that is really an equalizer.
Yeah. It is. Did y'all know that the Native Americans are suffering greatly?
Yes.
From coronavirus.
Yes.
I have friends from New Mexico that were part of the Navajo Nation, and they are struggling. They are struggling.
Yeah, a lot of them still don't have running water.
You are absolutely right.
Outside, you know, outhouses. And even I was watching an interview of one of their state congresswomen, and she said she didn't have running water. And there she is at the state house. And it's just sad, you know.
It is.
Something needs to be done.
Let me tell you, one of my employees, when I worked in New Mexico, one of my employees got married to a Navajo girl. And I wanted to go to the wedding. And I was a little miffed with Chris. I'm like, how are you not going to invite me to the Navajo wedding? And he had to break down and pull me to the side. And he said, listen, I would love to invite you, but if you came, I would not be able to be at peace. So what do you mean?
Yeah.
He says, I would be concerned about your safety.
Oh.
Yeah. Drugs is a major problem on the Navajo reservation. Gangs are a major problem on the Navajo reservation. Police brutality is a major problem on the Navajo reservation. And then he went even further to say, and where would you use the restroom? He's like, they're still using outhouses. His father-in-law, their family still had an outhouse. And so in order to give him peace, he asked me not to come. Yeah. So awareness of the fact that it's not just this community or not just that community gives us the opportunity to reach across the line. Stacy, I see you in deep contemplation up there. What you think? No, nothing.
No, I agree with some of that, but when we talk about educating people and trying to get them out there to vote and getting people changing the laws, the people that are up there making the laws are the ones that we need to get rid of.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you still have to change their mind. And we're saying we can't change their minds, but we have to. And when we try to, like when they had the last election, they tried to get, take people to give them the vote. They still found a way to move the polls, to change stuff so people can't vote. So even though we do all of that, we still get hit with the roadblocks. So, I mean, I don't know how we get around that. It's almost impossible. I mean, we keep trying, we keep trying, we keep trying. Boom, the roadblock. Something else changed. They move this, they do that. So you keep hitting the brick wall, and so you understand why the people who are poor, like, well, hell, we ain't got shit to lose.
Yeah.
Excuse my French, so let's just go tear up everything. It ain't ours to begin with, so why do we care?
Yeah.
So I mean, you can't fault them for that because they just keep getting hit with the brick wall all the time.
Okay. And I hear you on that. And so that's where I go back to lobbyists. Money.
Yes.
Money is also a great equalizer. Okay,
Right,
we said
but we
poverty
don't have any.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we
when
do.
I say we, I mean like collectively when we talking about the poor people and that they don't have
Yeah,
any.
we go to the hair salon. I ain't buying that.
I
go
get
go
that.
go to
hair
them
salon,
Asian
nail
folks.
salon,
I'm gonna be real
go
with
buy
y'all.
some
Them Asian
Jordans,
folks who sell
do all
weed
that.
are millionaires because of us.
I get that, but they
We
don't
got
see
money.
it that way. They don't see it that way.
I'm sitting here, I'm just trying to, take in everything because this week has, it's been hard. And, and him having a 20-year-old son who, when we're sitting at the dinner table and I'm saying, are you okay? And he's saying, no, I'm not,
Right.
I'm saying that he's not okay. And so much so, I have a sister circle and we talk every 2 weeks. We had to talk on Friday because we all have sons. And, I can't say that, and I'll be honest with you, I can't say any of them would disagree with what Stacey is saying. I can't say that I disagree with what Stacey is saying. We can do the voting, but they gut the voting rights. They gut it. And as soon as they gut it, they start kicking in every way to suppress our vote. So we go and we're like, okay, so what do we do now? So we try to do things the right way. And as much as we want to progress forward and we want to do the right thing, they're the people who are out there, they're trying very hard to make sure things stay the way that they are. There's something about not losing the power. And I do agree with a lot of things that are being said about being poor, especially teaching at a Title I school. I see so many things, that I can actually relate to because I know the background from whence I came, And so I look at all of that and I'm like, do I feel helpless? I don't feel helpless because I know that there are things that I can do. However, I'm also very aware of what I am up against.
Yeah.
Going back to what Kim was saying earlier, about having something across the board. I just, read a chapter in school. I'm on the Guiding Coalition at my school, and I just so happened to get the chapter consistency, collaboration, and consistency. The thing is, we have to have something across the board. And I am at heart and by nature, I am a true believer that there are more good people in the world than there are bad people.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because if I didn't, I don't know, I might have been up in Atlanta with him. I think when he said, I got some thug in me that I got. Okay. So,
Don't we all?
And anger. And anger.
So, I'm on the side of doing what's right, but there has to be a collaboration. There has to be a consistency. And going back to Letitia, to what you're saying about having, have like what Versus did with Jill Scott and Erica Badu. I was one of them. I was there for hours,
Exactly.
And the thing is,
I didn't even know
that with that, we're going to have to say, okay, well, who do we choose to be there? Because we have people there so different. You bring up, as you guys were saying, the NAACP. You bring up the Urban League. You bring up Color of Change. You start talking about Jesse Jackson, Al Sharpton, any of these people. And then you're going, okay, so who appointed them? This is what you're going to get. We're like, I respect the experience. However, look at where we are today. And if you're the same thing and I'm getting the same results, I'm going to have a problem supporting those organizations and those people. So those are the things that I'm looking at, because, when we bring up some of our institutions and we go, yeah, they've done some great things. But when you start going behind the scenes and you start realizing where their funding is coming from, that's why they start stopping short. It's not all, the lack of support from us is one thing, but also where they're getting their funding from is another thing as well. So when you have certain people funding certain organizations and they stop short in moving forward to make sure things are getting better and people start calling them out, you start getting the clash. And so there's a lot of discontent, disruption, and disunity that is sown within certain communities. And that is what I see. And that's because I've shared with some of you, I read a lot, I listen to podcasts, I listen to the talk shows, I listen to different people from that, I listen to Al Sharpton, Jesse Jackson, but I also listen to our leaders today. And the one thing is, we have to collaborate and we have to come up with things that we agree on. Because that's where we're having, we're such issues. There's such a disagreement on what should be done, who should get this, well, who's the leader? Because if we start asking right now, just to be real, okay, tell me who's the leader of the Jewish community. Tell me who's the Jewish or the Latino community. Tell me who's the leader of this community, of that community.
That is so true. Yeah.
And you start going, you're like, oh, wait a minute, I don't know. But then when it comes to our community, they want to say, these are your leaders. And no, I don't listen to them. Or they start saying, well, okay, so that's also a big problem for us. So there's so much there, and I know we're supposed to talk about solutions, and that's why I'm like, I don't even want to say anything, because I know there's so much, we have so much, we don't have the unity to do it. And I believe in allies. I believe there are people out there who want to do the right thing. Matter of fact, right now with everything that's going on, I see more unity now than I've ever seen as far as the diversity. And absolutely blown away with it, but I would like to see different results. I would love to see different results. And so that's all I'm gonna say. I just had to say that. I don't know if Stacey hadn't said anything, I don't know if I would have said anything. I know because I saw the look on her face, and I know she and I are a little more familiar with each other as far as our conversations, and we haven't talked, Stacey and I haven't talked in a long time. But when it comes to certain things, you do start wondering where can I, come in and do what I need to do. And so for me, the one thing I do, I start with my house. I talk to my children. I talk to my husband and my girlfriends who I communicate with. We do know we're going to be the best we can be, but we're also going to do the right thing, even if it's a hard thing to do. And sometimes it's, it's kind of making sure the thug in us stays suppressed. So.
And I was just thinking about what you were saying. I mean, I'm one of those people who grew up in the 60s, so I'm thinking, once upon a time, we did not think Black people have the right to vote. I was a part of that. I remember being a rebel, and I said to myself, so what has happened to me? And the establishment accounts on us giving up. So our persistence, sticking to it, determined no matter what the circumstances are, we're not going to give up. And I remember being that person. So I'm like, now what happened to that person? Because I was one of 7 children, and my youngest brother and me, we were out there, we were marching, in junior high school. What happened to me? And that movement, the collective competency of all of us coming together and saying, we're not giving up no matter what. No matter what, my mom was upset, my mom was quiet, not wanting me to do it. I did not give up. And I think that's what the establishment counts on. Us forgetting, like you said, after so long, people forget the riots until it comes to them, and they forget. We cannot forget. And I guess I'm like the little, anyway, so I just, that's really what has to happen. Our persistence and just not taking it any longer.
Yeah.
So we won't go back to doing things or things being the way it used to be.
Yeah.
Letitia, is this being recorded? Because I would like to send it to a lot of.
It is being recorded.
So how do I get it?
I'll send it to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because this is the sort of thing that needs to go out, to see intelligent women discussing a problem and trying to find an answer.
Yeah.
And to some extent, well, maybe this group ought to start something, you know.
And you know that is an ultimate for me, is to bring us to the awareness that we can be more than just a place to go hang out for.
Exactly. Yeah.
That would be a complete waste of our time to just be a social club.
Yes.
Your daddy got trying to say, Tish.
Huh?
Daddy got something he's trying to say.
Okay.
I was listening to the young lady just a few minutes ago talking about the leaders, Reverend Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton, them. We have to not look at them as leaders. What we got to do is start doing ourselves as individuals to try to make change. We're looking for someone else. Martin Luther King couldn't make no change. He just set the pathway for you can try to make the change yourselves. Once we stop looking at other people for change and we start pulling this stuff out of ourselves, that's when you're going to see a radical change coming. Now, I know a lot of people is upset by what's going on, but one thing for sure, things do not stay the same. Even if the president get elected again, it's not going to stay the same. He's not going to be there forever. So don't be doubting yourself because of a certain situation. You still going to have to live. You still going to have to stand up and confront whatever comes forth and find ways of solving these problems. We can't solve all the police problem or the police brutality, but there's things we can teach our kids to do to try to prevent from getting in these situations. Some folks bring stuff on themselves, but we just gonna have to learn how to deal with some of these things, and don't just accept this just the way it is. It's not just the way it is. That's it.
All right. So in short, we got We got to keep coming back to the table. I know it. I know. Look, I have a 29-year-old son, my only child, my only child.
Mhm.
And I have been dealing with police harassment of my son in Middle Georgia since he was 16 years old.
Mhm.
My only son. Okay. So I have a vested interest
Yes, you do.
in seeing change come about. Not only that, I got another grandson coming up behind him. My only look, let me tell y'all, that picture of that grandmother standing in front of her son, begging the police not to harm him,
Yes.
that's me.
Mhm. Yeah.
And I promise you, let me make this clear, that I would die for my child in an instant
Mhm.
to protect him and keep him from harm.
True.
Promise you. And I will fight tooth and nail for my son. And not just my son, but my cousins. I got 4 cousins who are all in the same age group as my son. 4.
Mm.
I am surrounded by Black males. But if I allow that fear,
Mhm.
that anger to impact me, I can't come to the table. Don't nobody want to listen to me when I'm yelling.
That's true.
Ain't nobody gonna listen to me when I'm yelling. So we've got to get a hold of our reactive nature, posture ourselves in strength and power with a belief that we can make a change. Not that I am not helpless to change this circumstance. You believe whatever you want to believe, but I am not. And so I will stand in that authority and in that power until I see the change that I believe in.
I do too.
So now we can say, oh, it don't work, but we cannot throw our hands up in the air as if we can't try no more. All we can do is pray. That's over.
No, that's not. That's over. You're right.
That's over. And I go back to our children. Why do our children not want to have a conversation with us? Because we sat on our hands and said all we can do is pray when Columbine happened. And when all them other school shootings happened, we didn't do nothing.
Yes.
We didn't do nothing. We gave up. Cannot give up on this. Cannot. Spirit-led Life Center is in a community for a purpose. If we can impact nothing else, we can impact Peach County, Georgia.
Yes, we can.
Now, Audria, you are a researcher. You are a researcher to your heart. You've been researching a lot of stuff. You know a lot of stuff about a lot of different agencies. Share that information. You can post it on our website. You can share it in a group document, however you need to share it. Help us understand and see what you see. So that when we get ready to make a decision about what organizations is best to be a part of, we've got information. Information, knowledge is power. We keep saying that. Let's live it. The voting is coming up. There are people who are taking initiatives to collect data on who's doing what and where. I can see you doing that if you're willing to do it. Help us to be educated so that we can make decisions that have an impact. And let's not just worry about the election of the president, but let's focus on the election of the folks in our community. I keep telling folks, we have more of a direct impact on our lives from the folks that we vote as mayor and city councilman and chief of police than we ever will from the president. They make decisions that instantly affect us, and we forget to vote. So let's get information on them. Whoever is willing and has the gift, let's use it to the benefit of all. That's all I'm saying here. That's all I'm saying. So if you know about the Urban League and you know about the NAACP, share that information. I chose the color of change because based on the research that I had done, quick research, not thorough, but quick research, I saw some good. Help us to know which organizations are better. And we can pull our resources and our efforts. We can bring their representatives to, we got a building.
Yes.
We can do whatever the heck we want to within the law in that building. No, we ain't having no politicians come up in there and speak. I'm sorry. I just don't believe in that. But we can have education about who those politicians are, what those unbiased education about who those politicians are. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
You with me, Audrey? I see you nod.
I am.
Good.
You
Good.
know, I'm always open, you know, I'm very open-minded to a lot of things, you know. But I'm, you know, I guess, you know, for me, you know, the reality of some things, and, you know, I'm never going to give up. I'm a survivor. You know, I always find a way to make things better. I live in positiveness all day, every day, you know.
Yeah.
And it's just, you know, when I see things for, you know, for what I believe they are, and I'm always trying to also understand other people's side.
Yeah.
And perspectives of things. And so when I said what I said about the other organizations, I understand the perspectives of the other people.
Yeah.
So that is why, you know, I brought that up.
Yeah, share that with us so that we can understand too.
Yeah.
And then we can make an educated decision about the direction we want to go in. That's it. Even y'all know that as we started this, it was never about one person trying to tell you what to think or believe or how to be, right? That's always been the goal of this, was education, so that you can make an informed decision. So even in our social agenda, because we can't call it political, we're a nonprofit organization, but even in our social agenda, we can be educated and have the right to choose which direction we want to go in. Yeah. Yeah. Anybody else? Sherry, you've been quiet.
I don't know that I have anything to say. I mean, I have an opinion, but it's certainly not what I've heard here, and I might be out of order, so I.
No.
Say what you feel. We need every voice at the table.
I think it starts at the top.
That's what I think. Top comes down instead of the bottom goes up.
Right.
But I guess that's only through elections and president. And
see, I disagree with the elections. I disagree with the Democrats and the Republicans. The two sides of the same coin.
I disagree with that too.
Yeah.
You want to get to the bottom of it, you talk about the Rothschilds, you talk about the Rockefellers, you talk about the Chases. That's where it's coming from, but it's not coming from these little bitty peons, because every president I know of is just a puppet.
You're right.
You've been talking to Mark. My son and Sherry agree.
I don't have to talk to Mark.
I know.
We do share some of the same beliefs.
I know you do.
But I had this before I met him.
Yeah.
I know that. Yeah. I know.
Well, and this is why I believe in the power of our dollars. Remember, we said our votes don't count, but our dollars do. If we could figure out who we want to support, what group we want to pool our resources with, we can make Rothschild money, you know, collectively. Maybe not individually, but collectively.
Yeah.
I'll never forget, I was in DC probably about a year ago, and I met a man who he and his wife had been lobbyists. And at that particular time, I don't know what it was, but people were protesting stuff. And this man says to me, you know, protests are a complete waste of time. And I said, why would you say that? I was just so overwhelmed. And he says, because lobbyists control most of the things.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
That 9 times out of 10, that what people are protesting about, some lobbyists has already been talking about it. They've already made a decision on it. The protests are reactive.
Mm-hmm.
They don't affect much. But a lobbyist, they can affect. To be a lobbyist requires funding.
Mm-hmm. The
It
backing.
requires money. And that's why I brought up the example of the NRA. The NRA is strong. They are strong.
Mm-hmm.
And they impact legislation.
Tisha,
Yeah.
can I make a suggestion?
Yeah.
Sure.
Will you do me a favor and let Sherry finish her statement?
Okay.
And let her finish it. All of us spoke without being interrupted.
I'm
Let her
sorry.
finish her
Did I
statement.
interrupt you? I'm sorry.
I know I was finished. Yeah. I didn't have anything else to say. I'm done.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I
wanted
agree
to
with Sherry that it is the financial piece and the influence
Yeah.
of money that is
Yeah.
really driving all this.
I too agree with her. It's the same coin, just got two different sides showing, but it's the same coin.
Always about the money.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Follow the dollars.
I agree too, Miss Gloria and Sherry.
Said 3-2.
She says she agrees too.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I just wanted to make sure that Sherry got a chance to finish her statement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm done.
So
Okay.
now, okay. Well, and this brings us to another topic. Can we commit to our money, to using our money effectively? I remember Colin Kaepernick calling for a boycott of the NFL. I don't remember too. And Falcon season was off the chain that year. And everybody in my community was still buying Falcons gear and still buying Falcons tickets and dying to go to the Super Bowl.
I didn't watch not one game of
I have-
any football.
I didn't
You
know.
could, I don't care if friends came over, they want to watch it. After that, you got to go to your house because you're not watching it over here.
I
No,
still
ma'am.
hadn't watched a football game.
And I
I
still don't.
No,
I
have
will not. I will not until they change. You know, so that's and Ti right now is calling for a boycott. Blackout 2020. I know it's Ti, but Ti trying. He's trying.
Look. I read something that they were talking about. You know, they get all these people that want to come and speak. Why do you get the rappers? You got somebody saying whose name is Killer Mike with kill something, and you trying to make a statement about peace. You got T.I., who's a rapper who's been rapping about everything negative under the sun, and everybody's been buying his music and listening to it, and they follow him. But now he's going to come out and be like, no, don't tear Atlanta down. When you've been saying through your whole career and made all this money of all this violence and all this other stuff. How about get some people who are about peace and have been about peace and who not walking by with Killer Mike all over their chest and all this other craziness? I'm like, come on, get out of here with that.
You're right.
So I have a question, Stacey. When you say that, when you make that statement and you say, how about getting people who have always been about peace? Who would the people be to you?
Okay.
See, I don't really know, but I know having a rapper up there, that's not going to.
Gangster rappers.
You know, right. That's not somebody I'm going to listen to.
But the thing is, they're not trying to reach you because you're not the one who's out there doing that. They're trying to reach the people who are actually following Killer Mike and T.I. and even though what you're saying is true, let me finish. What you're saying is true. However, those guys who you're naming, they do have influence over those people and they have a lot of followers. So this goes back to what I was saying earlier. When saying who are the leaders, who should be in the front, who should do this, is where you're going to have the divisiveness because
Mhm.
you name Killer Mike. If you ever listen to Killer Mike when he's talking about what to do to empower our community,
Right.
same part, you got to be able to do two things at one time. He really actually has some very good ideas. Same
Okay.
T.I. Now, when you start talking about their music, which I do not listen to, you know, it probably is some craziness, but when I listen to them as activists, when I
Mhm.
listen to them as people who want to empower our community, they're talking a whole different game. So
Right.
why they chose to get them, because the people they're trying to reach, the people who are out there defacing and they're not the people who look like you and I. They are the people who follow Killer Mike and they follow T.I. That is why they had them come and they
Mhm.
that's
Well,
Okay,
the other,
that makes sense. Mhm.
yeah, the other piece is that the communities that were being destroyed, both Killer Mike and T.I. had invested greatly. Now, Stockbridge is owned by T.I., okay?
Mhm.
Stockbridge, Georgia. College Park, owned by T.I. So I'm with you on the messaging of the music that they make. And by the way, I was a T.I. fan. So I know what his music is like. That was a past life.
Letitia.
But and it is unfortunate because I do recognize the impact of the type of music that they have created on the mentality of a whole lot of folks.
Mhm.
So it's like this dichotomy that on the one end you've got this great activist who's trying to make a change, but on the other end, the messaging that he's used to generate the revenue, impact change, is questionable.
Right.
It is questionable. So
Yes.
yeah.
But you're gonna have to speak
there
up.
are huh?
Did you hear
I can
me?
hear you.
Oh,
Shirley?
okay. I wasn't sure. You got to look at it. They use different messengers to get the information out. It don't always be pretty, but a lot of times they might just be the messages can get to these folks
Yeah.
that they can have. Even back in the day when they was in the 60s, they called on James Brown to go out there to try to calm, you know. So you can using a different message for different situations.
Yeah.
And the nice guy might not cut it right long in that.
Let's face it, we can't afford the Obamas either.
No, we can't afford the Obamas.
Either of them.
I thought about, I think it was, who was it? It was either you or Stacy said that we're making the Asian community rich without, rich by going out buying that hair. I don't know why people do that, but nonetheless, I think that, they have a right. But the people that tend to make the difference or the young people listen to are the people in Hollywood. Now, if Beyonce went out there on stage and threw off her wig or her weave and said, "We gonna leave this alone," that's what they listen to.
Yeah.
People didn't stop perming their hair until Chris Rock got on there and start talking about, let me show you what this lie does to your hair. But they don't listen to reason. It has to be someone in this generation, it has to be someone in the limelight. If you want to do that, that's your business. But I don't understand. I think was it you, Shirley, last week you said that you had your mask on and people couldn't see your expression. When she was talking about she couldn't wait for her hair to come from China. I think it was you.
Yeah, I said it.
To me,
I'm like,
it makes no sense. And I don't, I was younger as we all, I don't understand. The movie star have to get on TV or Beyonce has to go out there in front of a million
long
people,
straight
blow
hair.
her wig off and tell her, we gonna leave this alone, and they'll follow her.
That's probably true.
That old movie, I'm gonna get you, sucker, from the early 90s. There was a classic line in that when whoever was out in jail or gone forever, And he said, "What happened to the revolution?" And they said they marched down to the government building and they gave them jobs. So the revolution is over. Because they got a little job, they got a little money, and they didn't worry about it. So we become complacent. And I know, particularly as women,
We can't hear you, Shirley.
I know as women, we spend a lot of time. And I don't know why you can't hear me.
There you go. There you go.
We spent a lot of our years, some of us had to leave the revolution to raise our families and work and do all those other things. So some of that stuff did get pushed to the side. But we just got to come out of that complacency that we've gotten into. We've got comfortable while all the same time, all this other stuff, this crap is still going on.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I was trying to get Kim to bring in her daughter into this conversation, but she's already gone for the day. One of the things that I definitely want to do, and this type forum will be continued. I have been considering doing a meaningful conversation group for a while now, and just didn't know where to start and what topics to include, yada, yada, yada. But I do want this to continue because the dialogue must continue. It must. And out of that dialogue, we must create solutions and generate peace. And I believe that this that just happened, nobody yelled, nobody overtalked each other. Everybody got to speak their mind. We had differing opinions. We had differing opinions. And we do have some ideas. In spite of how it might feel, we do have some ways forward. You know, I'm looking forward to what Audria produces. And I'm more than willing to share it with everybody so that we can move forward. We can move forward. So look for the Meaningful Conversation Forum. I was trying to wait until we got back in the building, but urgency, you know, we got too much going on to be waiting on the bill. Too much going on, and we have to get in the conversation. We have to get in the conversation. And I'm going to be looking to invite key people from the community to hear the conversations, so that we can help to make a change in whatever way possible. And my mom promised me, maybe promised that I would share this. So I hope that you guys are not uncomfortable with me sharing this. I do believe the conversation has been good. So it will be posted on Facebook.
Good.
Yeah. And available for anybody who desires to see it. And YouTube, so that anybody who desires to see it can have an opportunity to see it. Yeah.
It's gonna be good.
It's gonna be good.
It is gonna be good.
Yeah. Yeah. As long as we keep coming to the table, we can make a difference. We just can't stop coming to the table. I love you all.
Love you
I
too.
thank God for you. So grateful to see you. I hope that the prayers and the meditations and the message may have empowered you a little bit to get through this week. Remember all the beauty that is still in this world in spite of all that we see. Stay away from the news. 30 minutes a day, period.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. 30 minutes. Turn that mess off, because the other piece about the news is that for every negative story, there are at least 10 positives that are not getting reported. Let's keep that in mind. Just like let's be real about numbers. It's like, okay, so yeah, we didn't had a police incident. There was one incident among 100 million situations. And I know what you're gonna say. That was one that got recorded. But like I told y'all earlier, my son was bothered by Warner Robins Police Department at least once a week when he was 16, 17 years old. He was pulled over often, but nothing ever happened. They even searched his car one time, pulled out all his stuff, left it on the side of the road, didn't find Jack. And was just like, okay, now you can put your car back together. Warner Robins, Georgia, not Minnesota. But even with all those interactions, he's still safe. Not once did they put a gun in his face or put a knee on their neck, on his neck. It was harassment, nonetheless.
It was harassment.
It was harassment, but he's safe. And so, in spite of all the negativity, there's still situations that are not escalating to this point. And we got to stay aware of that. All right. Those are my final comments. Anybody else have a comment that they want to leave us with today? All right. Have a great day. We'll see you
too.
Monday for 6:30 class and Wednesday for 6 o'clock class.
Yeah.
Have a great afternoon. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.